Well, on the side of the bus, we said we get more money, we're getting more money.
But we hadn't left the EU, so we had that money anyway to use. It's political willpower, isn't it? It's not Brexit.
I'm not quite sure where you go with this.
That's Lord Elliott. He was the chief executive of Vote Leave, the campaign that triumphed in the EU referendum in 2016. He is one of the masterminds of Brexit. Many experts and pundits thought that it couldn't be done. They said the Remain campaign would easily win, what with the Prime Minister and Chancellor at the time leading the charge. But Elliott and his team had figures like Michael Gove and Boris Johnson.
We can take back control of £350 million.
Their campaign made a string of promises that leaving the EU would ensure more money to the NHS, control of immigration and our borders, free trade with the world, and a sense of sovereignty returned to the British people. 10 years on from that stunning victory, the FourSight team travelled across the country to see what the results of Brexit have been.
It's been a disaster, just a waste of 10 years.
You can watch our journey in our last episode, but today we wanted to publish our full interview with Lord Elliott.
Can you record this?
As we discuss the effects of Brexit and his recent book marking the 10-year anniversary. So Matthew Elliott, in your book you wrote, on some the record has been atrocious, on others we've had some wins. Is that the legacy you wanted for Brexit?
I think the key point about Brexit was the fact that we left the EU, we took back control, as we said we would, so laws now made in the UK. We're not paying the membership fee, which will now be about sort of £28 billion a year. And we've got some great trade deals. Now, there's a lot more we can do with the Brexit powers, but overall, I'm still very happy that we left.
But on those trade deals, for example, you know, we spoke to a man who runs a haulage company down in Dover. He says he's got so much red tape, it's been terrible for the business. We spoke to a man who sold mussels up in Wales. He's got no business left. They're not feeling any of that, are they? What would you say to them who feel that those trade deals or the economy isn't in the shape they thought it might be?
If you look overall, UK trade with the EU is higher than it was when we were in the EU. And crucially, it's my favourite stat, if you look over the past 10 years, we've increased our trade the fastest of any country in the world, except Canada. So only Canada's in front of us. They're OECD figures. So trade has expanded hugely since we left the EU. So you may find one or two case studies, like you say, but overall our trade is up.
But even though they might be one or two case studies, but those are real, you know, individuals whose businesses, the small traders, who have really felt the effects of Brexit.
And there'll also be companies who, before Brexit, weren't able to trade with other countries across the world who the EU didn't have trade deals with. So you have to look at the things in the large.
And when it comes to the £350 million on the side of the bus, that was fact-checked. The figure was more like £100 million. And you said in your book, the extra £350 million, which you alleged, was achieved in 2019 before we left the EU. So that proves that that figure was not right, was it? I mean, how can we get that money back if we hadn't even left the EU and we already got it? It was about political will to get the money for the NHS, wasn't it?
And what I say in the book is the fact that by 2019, we were giving the NHS an extra £350 million
we hadn't left
a
the
year.
EU. But we hadn't left the EU, so we had that money anyway.
Well, on the side of the bus, we said we get more money, we're getting more money.
But we hadn't left the EU, so we had that money anyway to use. It's political willpower, isn't it? It's not Brexit.
I'm not quite sure where you go with this. On the side of the bus, you talk about the amount of money we give the...
If we left the EU, we'd have £350 million. You're saying we had that money in 2019 before we'd left the EU. So the money was already there to be spent. It's money for us to spend on the NHS,
Well, of course,
not EU money.
Also in that time, of course, the UK's debt and deficit have both increased as well. So you need to look, again, you need to look at things in the round.
And when it comes to immigration, the Vote Leave website was talking about having a fairer system, having people, a points-based system, a fairer system so that we have the right people coming in. We got that, didn't we, with Brexit?
We got a points-based system, yes.
Which Boris Johnson introduced.
He did.
And we got tens of thousands of people coming in to be students, to work in the NHS. But are you saying that that was too many people still?
The key point about Brexit and migration and the points-based system was the fact that at that point it's then up to politicians to decide the mix of people they want to give visas of all kinds to, work visas, study visas, etc. Now, I think Boris Johnson's talked about this extensively, how he expanded that too far, in his view, post-COVID. He overestimated how many people we needed, and that's why migration went up. But the crucial point is that then it was in the hands of control of politicians. And then you had the accountability from that. And fast forward to the 2024 general election, when the Conservative Party were roundly beaten, that was the voters saying to the Conservative Party, we don't like your record on a whole bunch of things, but including migration.
So was the vote in 2016 about controlling our borders, controlling immigration? Was it about reducing immigration?
It was about who controlled immigration, so taking back control, and it being controlled at the UK level.
And so we then had tens of thousands of people coming, helping out NHS. Was that right, though? That seems like what we voted for, was to have a new, fairer system.
And what we voted for was to have the UK government deciding independently who can and cannot live and work in the UK.
But in your book, you're saying that people feel like immigration is still too high. What were they voting for? Were they voting for fewer immigrants, or control of immigration, or both?
That's a good question. I mean, if you go back to the immediate polling after the referendum and ask people what they were voting for, actually the number one issue was the sovereignty point, the independence point, the taking back control point.
So with our numbers now down to 171,000, that's net migration. Is that the right number we should be looking at?
I mean, this wasn't part of the Brexit referendum in terms of the level of migration.
But it became that, didn't it? I mean, did you not want it to be about numbers? It was about control. But it's now, here we are 10 years on, it's become about numbers, hasn't it?
It was about a whole bunch of issues. You talk to different voters. For some, it was all about taking back control and the sovereignty aspect of it and who makes laws in the UK. For some, it was about where the money was sent. She was sent to the EU or spent in the UK. For others, it was about migration. Can I finish, please?
Yes, of course.
For some, it was about fishing, it was about agriculture, a whole bunch of issues about.
Are you therefore concerned that some people feel that immigration has become the number one issue when it comes to Brexit?
I don't recognise that as a analysis.
Well, in terms of where we are today, when we have Mr. Farage and reform on the rise, you wrote about that and about how he approaches immigration. You've also got Restore Britain, which Dominic Cummings, who worked with you on the Vote Leave campaign, is defending. That's the route we're going down, isn't it, where we are now, 10 years on? Are you happy with that state of affairs?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because actually, if you look at politics across the world, range of different countries, you're seeing basically the decline of the traditional parties.
Yes.
So you're seeing this in France as well, with the rise of the far right and the far left as well. You're seeing it in Germany with the AfD. Of course, you're seeing it in the US as well. So in a sense, this is a similar pattern across all of democracies across the world.
So you don't think Brexit is a very specific thing here in terms of its impact on politics? You're seeing a similar rise of populism, etc., everywhere?
I think the bigger fact, if you look back across the span of the, let's say, 25 years since the turn of the millennium, the big point was really the financial crisis. And at that point, that's when growth was really cut off in the UK, but also Western European countries. And essentially from that point forward, voters were fighting over a similar sized pie.
How do you feel when you see Dominic Cummings, who worked on Vote Leave, who's supporting Restore Britain, where they talk about mass deportation, banning the burqa? Is that something you would agree with?
I haven't really seen him support that, so I can't really comment on it.
But what do you make of Restore Britain and their rise, as well as the rise of reform? Because some people are quite worried by their rhetoric when it comes to especially issues like immigration, mass deportation.
I think it's a very separate issue to Brexit.
You think it's a completely separate issue to Brexit?
Yes.
You don't think Brexit has created a much more vocal, much more fractious debate when it comes to the issue of immigration?
I don't actually know.
Okay. And do you have any regrets at all when it comes to the campaign or where we are 10 years on?
When it comes to the campaign, no. I've written in the book about how over the weekend following the Brexit vote, things of course turned very, very quickly to a Conservative Party leadership election, because of course David Cameron chose to resign on the Friday, the morning after the vote. So it went from being talking about Brexit and debating that to being about the Conservative Party. I think over that weekend, it would have been great for the Vote Leave campaign to be out a little bit more, talk about Brexit and how it's good for the world. And of course, we made up ground since that point. But that weekend was a crucial point where we were, in some ways, not making that case, and players in the campaign were actually thinking about the Conservative Party leadership election. Because
that's an interesting point. When you talk to people who voted Brexit, who might feel upset 10 years on that they didn't get what they wanted, they don't necessarily blame their vote. They blame the politicians who are in charge of it. Do you wish that you or more of Vote Leave were in charge of that, rather than, what we saw with Theresa May and others taking on that mantle? What I'm pleased about is the fact that Brexit's actually brought back control to the UK, taking back control.
but also restored accountability of politicians. For me, that's a crucial point. That now when a government's elected with a majority, like Keir Starmer has now, or like Boris Johnson has a majority of 80, they alone are responsible for what happens during their time in office. And I think that accountability is very strong to restoring trust in politics.
And just one last thing, you recently said the next election you think will be a rerun of the Brexit referendum.
Yeah.
Does that mean we haven't moved on anywhere in the last 10 years? I mean, why are we still having these same debates and feels like we're not getting anywhere?
I think it's interesting that within the Labour side of the debate, Labour, Lib Dems, Greens, they seem to be trying to rejoin the EU possibly to try and get back to growth. I actually follow what Tony Blair said about this in his essay a week or so ago, where he said actually we need to address the world as it is now and actually address the fact that if you look at the EU, for example, it's gone from being about 35% of world GDP in the 1970s to be about 15% of GDP now, 10% by 2040. We've got the rise of AI. He wants us to address those issues and actually look to the wider world for our future.
Matthew Elliott, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for watching our full interview with Lord Elliott, and please also make sure you watch our full documentary on the effects of Brexit itself. Keep writing in the comments, and please, as always, subscribe to FourSight to get the next episode.